Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. A new CBS News poll shows that only 47% of Democrats and 57% of Republicans think the U.S. should send weapons and supplies to Israel. Now, this is interesting because the split is almost 50-50 across the board, which is interesting because you see the American people are very split both on this issue ideologically and this issue financially. And you may say, well, this is a one-off situation where there's only half the country that holds support for Israel. Well, no, this seems to be a growing trend with U.S. foreign relations, because according to a recent Reuters poll, some 52% of Democrats backed arming Ukraine in the most recent poll, down from 61% in May. And among Republicans, support for sending weapons to Kyiv fell from 35% to 39%. Some 34% of Democrats in the poll agreed with the statement that Ukraine's problems are, quote, none of our business and we should not interfere, compared to 56% of Republicans. So even in terms of the Ukraine conflict, where a larger amount of people support one side, that being Ukraine, the majority of people support Ukraine in their efforts to combat Russia. But even so, not a lot of people want to send supplies or even get involved in any way. So what's causing this growing trend in U.S. non-interventionist policy, reemergence of American isolationism as a policy? The fact that a lot of people don't want to send any supplies, munitions, weapons, money, or even information to countries overseas involved in conflicts. Well, I think the major reason is, one, people are very concerned financially right now. And they think if they're not being supported financially, why are we financially supporting people halfway across the world in conflicts that don't involve us in essentially any way? And two, most Americans are becoming anti-war. The old neocon era is starting to come to an end. And so people don't want to arm and escalate conflicts. They don't see spreading democracy in the Middle East as an ideological goal anymore. It's not important to them. What's important to them is feeding their families, having good schools, being safe. And those things, the problems here, currently, in America, in its cities, take priority over the problems of people on the other side of the world. And what I think is really interesting is that if you held this same poll 10 years ago, 20 years ago, should we give support to Israel in a conflict similar to this? I think across the board, you'd get 80 or 90% support. And the fact that that number has dropped down to about 50%, and you can see that it's gone down lower, especially in terms of the Ukraine support, that's also gone down lower over time. So people are losing support for helping these foreign nations in their conflicts because nobody wants to start World War III. That's another reason, is the term World War III has been thrown around so much recently because it's kind of a possibility. I don't think it's really realistic that it's going to happen right now or right away. I think we're far off from any of these conflicts getting that far out of hand, but it's still a possibility. And so don't poke the bear. Don't send all your money overseas to militaries trying to wipe out other countries. Probably not within your best interest if you desire peace, safety, security, and financial stability. So what does this mean for the international community? If the majority of Americans eventually decide that they don't want to help other countries internationally, that's a big problem for them. Countries in Europe, Asia, all over the world will slowly fall apart without U.S. intervention. The safety and security of the world may actually be in turmoil because we fund so much. We make sure countries don't feud with each other, they don't go to war. We threaten economically, physically with our military, politically, and we even know the U.S. has a history of killing leaders who are dissidents to the American ideal of spreading democracy. But if those threats are not backed up by action, if we slowly start to pull away, people don't have support for doing those things anymore, yeah, the world may end up in some sort of turmoil. We may see the emergence of more wars. It's definitely a possibility because right now America is the undoubted solo superpower of the world. But year over year, we lose that to China and Russia. We're going to go back to a type of international foreign environment where you have multiple world superpowers who maintain a certain domain in the world, protect their interests, and basically ignore or neglect everybody else. And as the United States faces numerous internal conflicts, and we're losing that power, we're going to have to refocus on ourselves, on the Western Hemisphere, and basically leave the rest of the world to its own devices. And that policy will be reflected by people's votes, who we vote for. And the fact that close to 50% and soon maybe more than 50% support the policy of removing America from the world stage, not funding these foreign wars, that's exactly what may happen. And the fact that the American people and people all over the world have developed this sense of apathy and uninterest in spreading their ideals to everyone else because their population has become so across the board depressed and hopeless and directionless, we don't desire to sacrifice or go out of our way to help other people when we're suffering, when the American people are suffering. Because when you're suffering, you don't help other people. Not in the same way that you would if you are plentiful, if you have excess money, if you have excess resources. When you don't have that, you focus on yourself. You focus on your household first. And that's what the US will do, or at least it looks like it will, judging by these numbers. So what do you think? Should the US send money to Israel? Should we keep sending money to Ukraine? Should we completely pull out of the world stage, or at least stop funding it? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.